everyone. I'm coming on today to talk a little bit about market planning and market prepping and some commonly asked questions that I think I see a lot in my social media groups as far as what to do for your first market and what to do for your more advanced markets once you decide whether or not you're going to be a regular on your craft circuits. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this. Some of these I've kind of scattered throughout my videos, but I thought maybe one consolidated episode might be nice for people that are just coming for questions specifically about how to prep for their first market and then how to move forward after that for other markets that they may want to do. So I took a quick list of what I think is truly necessary for your first market, and I will tell you, I kept that list short and sweet because I do think for your first market, you absolutely do not need to go over the top. It is something that is already going to be a little bit stressful to you. So keeping it just kind of simple is the best way, I think, to go for your first market. I will tell you that for my first markets that I did over the last few months, I was very deliberate about the markets that I picked. I kept them small. They were church events. They were local community center events where I knew I wouldn't have a huge turnout, but I knew it was something small to kind of get my foot in the door and start seeing what would sell for my markets and seeing how I would do. I figured that was a nice way to kind of test the water. And so when I did those markets, I'll tell you, there's really only 4 things that you need if it's your very first market. The first is, of course, your inventory. People often question how much inventory that they have. I would say a really good rule to go by is to have 10 times your booth fee at varying prices. So you're going to want things that are in a higher price range, you're going to want things that are in a lower price range, and you're going to want things that are a little bit in the middle. But I would say every fair that I had, I consistently did 10 times my booth fees in sales. I had more than that in on-hand inventory, so I didn't sell out, but I did make that as far as what I made back for my money. So I would say to have 10 times your booth fee on hand is probably a good benchmark for your first market or your first couple of markets if you're testing the waters for a little bit. So that is number 1 to answer the question that comes up, I think most commonly, is how much inventory should you have on hand? And the answer to that is 10 times your booth fee for me. You also will want a table. That's really super basic, but it's something that you're most likely going to need unless the fair that you are doing provides the table for you. You will want to bring a table and a chair. And honestly, you probably want to bring like water or a snack for yourself, depending on how long you're going to be there. But that's very basic. You just need something to put your inventory on. There's no need to stress or spend a lot of money on display furniture or anything like that. I would say if you have watched my other videos and you do know that I am a really big advocate of creating dimension in your displays, then there are easy ways to do that, and easy and inexpensive ways to do that. I created my first displays using stackable bins from Dollar Tree. I spent a grand total of $9 on what I needed for a large display. That created some height on my table, and then I think I spent $3 on other baskets. So really my startup cost, I fortunately had the table already, but you can get those at Walmart for, you do have to spend a little bit for those. Those can be, around $35 to $45 for a 6 to 8 foot table. So if you don't have one on hand, you definitely will want to either borrow one or get one from wherever you want to buy a table from, but you can get those at places like Walmart for about $35 to $45. But you will need a table, whether it's provided to you by the event or you bring it on your own. I would say most commonly you have to bring your own table. So it's not a bad idea if you're thinking about doing it long term to have a table on hand. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I go into advanced marketing. Inventory, table, change. You will just want to have cash on hand to provide change. For every one of my markets, I have found that $90 broken up into small bills, 10s, 5s, and 1s was sufficient for me. I only sell at fixed dollars, so $5 and stuff like that, not like $4.50 or $4.75 is not how I do it. If you do, of course, you'll want small change. But generally speaking, I have brought $90 in change to my events, and I have felt that that has been sufficient. My first events, I will add the context that I only did cash sales, Venmo, and PayPal. Those were the 3 ways that I accepted payment, and I did not miss a sale due to that. It could have been partly because I was doing church sales, and I think people tend to bring cash there. Any of the younger crowd does tend to have a lot more things available for virtual money transfer, like Venmo and your PayPal. But generally speaking, having cash and then having my Venmo and my PayPal set up was sufficient to get me through my first half a dozen markets that I did last year. And finally, most importantly, a positive attitude is definitely something that you want to bring. I talk about that a lot in my other market videos, but having a realistic, balanced, but positive attitude is definitely something that's going to help you. You don't know what's going to happen, but be excited about it. Don't be disappointed, but be excited as you go out there. You're doing what you love, and I think it's really important to take the moment to realize that and to let that transfer for a million different reasons. But overall, your general happiness, I think, will be a lot better if you just kind of come with that optimistic attitude of what's going to happen here today. I don't know, but I'm excited because I'm here and I'm doing something for myself. So that's really all you need for your very first market. You need inventory, you need a table, and you need change and a positive attitude. I would say those are 4 things that will get you through your very first market. Maybe I'm naive. If you feel like I am, definitely feel free to drop that in the comments. But it helped me, and I got through my first few markets using that. Now that I'm ready to do a full year of markets, I am ready to kind of step up my game. And I've been really focused on that, and I've been really focused on legitimizing my business and what that means. So I would say if you're looking to move into markets in a more of a full-time basis or more regular basis, and you are looking to legitimize your business, there are certain things that you should think about. For me, one of the first things that I focused on this year was actual legitimizing of my business. So I registered my business in my state and applied for my sales tax permit, because you do have to pay taxes. Either you or your customer, if you transfer them onto your customer, will need to pay sales taxes if you are in a sales tax state. For me, I'm fortunate my state has an exemption for sales taxes for artistic works. So I'm in the process of applying for that. I have filled out the forms that I need to, and hopefully they come back and approve my exemption so I don't have to worry about collecting taxes or paying taxes for sales on my markets this year, because I'm a fiber artist making these things out here. You will, just so you know, it's really important that you consult with a tax professional if you are legitimizing, because there are different types of taxes. You should be aware of them. You will still have income tax for your business, and that will come with all sorts of things like deductions and expenses and everything like that. So really important to kind of do the research in your state on what you need to do, and to consult with a tax professional if that's something that you are doing and really kind of earning a little more income off of. You certainly don't want to be caught evading those taxes or having that kind of come as a shock to you when it comes time to file your tax returns. You are earning income off of these things, so you do want to think about where that's going to fall on your business profile or your personal income taxes. So that is what I am doing. Like I said, I registered my business in the state so that I have some legitimacy. I am filing for my taxes, and I'm toying with the idea of insurance. I don't know if I quite am at the level where I need it. I'm kind of balancing the number of things that I'm able to do in any given day, given that I work a full-time job and have other commitments. But insurance is on my list to kind of look into, especially when you're making the children's toys and things like that. We all know things about like safety eyes, whatever it might be, but it's just something I'm toying with. I don't even know if I recommend it at this point. But it is definitely something to think about. Other things that you probably want to think about that have a little bit more to do with legitimacy are bringing business cards. I would say even at my first market, the fact that I didn't have business cards, I had some. I went to Staples and I printed out like a page of them because I didn't really think I would need them or anything like that. But it's not a good idea it's not a bad idea to have them, because I definitely had a few people ask for my business cards. They wanted one for like the raffle. So it was good to have them on hand. I am in the process right now of building my own business cards. I've finally kind of come up with a logo, with a set name. I have established all my social media presences, so that's something that I would want to have on my cards. And so now that I have that all, I'm going into actually create some business cards. And I haven't figured out yet what I'll use. I don't know if I'm gonna use like Canva or Vistaprint or just try Staples. Like, I don't know yet. I'm still exploring that. But I'll let you all know where I end up on that. But business cards, definitely something to do. I'm gonna check off my list as I go through with you guys to just make sure that I've talked about all of that. So that, business cards. On that same line, you'll want tablecloths and things that kind of dress up your table a little bit. You have different opportunities to do that. I did have a tablecloth at my first event. I used a Dollar Tree. I used Dollar Tree tablecloths. I spent $1. I felt like it added something to my booth. I actually used seasonal ones because I was at Thanksgiving and Christmas market, so I just threw those on there. But it was fine. I just used, the plastic ones from the Dollar Tree. I now am going to be ordering ones that kind of go with my overall aesthetic that I have. So I have a few things on Amazon that I'm looking at, and I'm just trying to figure out the sizes that I want. So tablecloths are definitely something to think about as you go into more markets. Even your first market, it wouldn't hurt to have one if you want to throw that extra $1 in there for your costs. But that certainly was something that I felt like added a little bit extra to my table. Signage. So when I did my first market, all I did was print out a little thing that said my name, and I put it in a picture frame and I displayed it on my table. It just was something extra. It's definitely something that you can do long term if you wanted to. I think for me, I am going to do a custom print table runner and have that display now that I have my whole logo and my registered business name. I don't think that's a bad idea for me, and I definitely plan to do a few more markets. So I would like something that kind of makes me look more legitimate, especially as I move into the bigger markets. So that's something that I have been thinking about for me, and it might be something that's worth thinking about for you. I know you can get them on Etsy through other small businesses, and I do know you can also get them on Amazon, and they're probably a little bit more economical if you're ordering them through Amazon, but something to think about as far as options that are available to you for creating a sign. But again, if you're just starting out, kind of figuring out where you're going from there, keep it simple. Grab a photo frame, print out your sign, and just put it up there so people know who they're looking at, right? Super easy. I'm also considering printing out now those safety warnings about, not having safety eyes, not using them for children under 3. I am thinking about putting a couple of them on my table, because I do like to chat with people about that, but I think it's a little bit more helpful if it is on the table. So I was thinking about just getting one of those clear stand-up photo frames, again, probably from Dollar Tree, that I could just put a sign in that says, please be warned, safety eyes are not suitable for children under 3. I might even add a pet warning to mine, because that's how I am, but I do know people like to buy toys for their pets, but yarn actually isn't safe for pets. So that's definitely something that I want to make sure people know. It's something I've chatted about with customers that have come up to me in my booth and talked about their purchases. But it is something that I'm thinking about just putting a warning out there for people to have awareness of, because that's something that's important to me. So that is something that I have been thinking about doing. We talked about business cards. When you are going into your market, so I would say as you're moving towards more regular markets, that having a larger amount of inventory on hand is probably the way that you want to go. So for me, I'm probably going to aim to have at least $2,000 in inventory at every market that I do going forward for this year. That's a lot of inventory, I know. I don't know how it will go if I don't even know what I have on hand right now. I'm actually probably going to do that for next week's episode when I market prep for my 2-day fair that's coming up. I have to go through and I have to inventory because right now I've just been producing. I haven't really been tracking how much stuff I have. I know I have a lot. But I am aiming to have at least $2,000 in inventory for every market that I do. I feel like that would be a really successful weekend, right? If I sold out $2,000 of inventory in a day or 2 days, that feels pretty good to me. And I'm sure it would feel pretty good to a lot of people also doing their circuits. And of course, as I mentioned with your first market, you're going to want to make sure you have all of that inventory at varying price points so that you can really tailor to whichever type of customer you have in front of you, whether they're looking for that big purchase or whether they're just kind of impulse buying and supporting their small businesses by making small purchases. So that is something that you're going to want to have on hand, and you're going to want more of it as you move into larger markets. But in your initial markets, like I said, 10 times your booth fee is probably more than enough. When you do that, and when you're starting to think about how am I going to do this long term, what am I going to do long term, one of the things that I do is an inventory tracking through Excel. I use an Excel spreadsheet. I list out the items, I list out the inventory number that I have, I leave a blank space for how many I sell at the market, and then I just tick it off at the market so I know what sold, I know maybe what color I might sort by, what size I might sort by. But I, right now, am just using an Excel spreadsheet to track my inventory. I am going to see how that goes this year. I know there's different apps and things like that that are available, but I, just like many out there, am kind of just starting out on a lot of my more full-time markets. So I'm doing what works for me now, and I'm kind of just letting the process go as I find I have a stronger need for it. But I would say at a minimum, you want to have some sort of inventory tracking. And what I do is as I'm packing up my inventory, I pre-stage for my markets. And then as I'm packing up my inventory, I write it in my Excel spreadsheet and then I throw it into my storage bin. And that is how I go about tracking my inventory, recording my price points, and making sure I can calculate how much I have on hand. It makes it a lot easier because when you are working in something like Excel, you can just drag the totals and know exactly how much you have on inventory without having to sit there and do out all the math by hand. And then at the end, you can actually just print out, what I do is I print out the sheet for each market that I've done. And at the end of that market, I just write down all the extra admin stuff I need to know. I total up how much I sold. I write down for that market what my booth fee was. I might write notes to myself on that sheet about like, I liked this about that market, I didn't like that about that market, but it affords me some level of organization both at the market while I'm selling. I can tick off what sold, and so I have an idea of what my high items are, and then it also gives me a little bit of background data for what I did and didn't like about that market. And then in the end, you can actually even go back into Excel if you want, and you can kind of manipulate that data to tell you what your big ticket items were. Like there's all different rules that you can use in Excel that kind of tell you, oh, I sold if this equals 100% of my inventory was sold, then highlight it in red. And you can use tools like that to just identify much more easily and sort your inventory to say, oh, these were my big sellers. But at a minimum, you want some sort of inventory tracking and you want some sort of payment tracking. So like something at the market that allows you to say like, yes, I sold this item is really helpful. Going into that, along that same line, I actually did go and I'm using a Square Reader for my markets now. I do want to have a credit card option. You get the Square Reader for free, and I haven't decided yet. I know that there's a fee that Square charges for the customer or for you, and I haven't decided how I'm going to work that out yet as far as who's going to be paying the fee, because I have to go back and I have to kind of look at like what the percentage is and see if I think it's a really big deal if I pay an extra 30 cents versus I put that on the customer. I think Square offers the option to do either, to just do the fixed price that you write in, or to just add on the fee. So I am doing a Square reader this year for credit cards. As you do more and bigger markets, I do think it is good to have a credit card option available for your markets, because I do think more people at the larger markets will expect that. And so I think that that's something that's probably a good idea to do. And like I said, it's free to sign up on Square. You just have to worry about the Square processing fee and who's going to pay that when you do make your sale. So I had to play around with that Square reader too, which I'm planning to do that over the next couple of weeks before my market, so that I know how to use it when I'm actually at the market and there's no issues there. But that's definitely something that I think is worth maybe thinking about as you go into a broader, bigger market circuit. So we talked about business. Let's talk again about your table. Let's kind of drop back to the table and what you're bringing. We talked a little bit about how much inventory to bring. I do think if you're going to be doing more markets or you're going to be doing regular markets, it is definitely worth it to invest in some display furniture. That will translate to sales. There are marketing strategies for where your product placement matters, but that's definitely going to be where you still want to start to think about a few different things. You might want to have more than one table size available to you. I have noticed that different markets will have, of course, different available tables. So you could always have a 6-foot table and stay within that, a 6 or an 8-foot. 90% of the time, you're going to be afforded that much space, a 6-foot space, I would say. But I also have a 4-foot table that I use to make L spaces, or if I have a smaller market, I might want to use that if I have like standing display furniture that I can use on the side. A 4-foot table might be okay for my display racks that I want to have on the actual table. But I do think that you want to probably start thinking about having a couple of different table options available to you. Along that same note, I haven't decided yet for me, but outdoor markets, you might want to think about a tent. Those are things that I think are often helpful to have for those outdoor markets. I know you can get them for less than $200. On either Walmart or Amazon, and that's something that's probably going to help with your booth. You're not, unless the event requires it, you're not required to have it, but if you're going to do a few regular ones, then maybe it's something that you want to think about. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a requirement unless the event says it's a requirement. But that various table sizes, I would say, is true of any indoor or outdoor market. So definitely something you might want to think about. I would say you also probably want to have a few options available for your display furniture. I have a few different rack sizes, I have a few different crate options, and then I have a few different risers that I'm using, as well as baskets. I have all of those available to me, and I can kind of shift them out depending on what the market is. And for me, it makes sense to have that amount. You might not want to do that. You might want to just stick to exactly what you have, same fixed display for everyone. But I do think that the options that are available to you as far as displaying your stuff can vary from market to market. So unless and until you're regular and you're at the same places and know exactly what your space is going to be, it's okay to have kind of some various sized display options, because you definitely want to create those dimensions within your overall table display. Okay, so kind of the last few things that I want to talk about are really slightly more advanced. And they're kind of also just kind of common sense type of things, but it's worth mentioning. Organizing yourself, if you're looking to do a year of markets, one of the things that I'm doing is looking to calendar out so I really have a good visual of what I have upcoming for markets and can prep for that. I think you can set aside a workspace for that allows you to kind of visualize and see your timelines so that you know what you have coming up and what markets you have. Having some sort of organization to that, I think, will be helpful for alleviating any stress that you might have going into the markets, especially if you're upping your game and you're going to be doing a lot more markets over a period of time, or multiple markets. Like I said, I think I'm only doing once a month, but I know that there will be certain times of year where there will be more markets available, like around Christmas time. I know I will definitely probably be doing bi-weekly to weekly markets, so I really will want to have an idea of what I have upcoming. And so I'm going to be using a calendar display in order to organize that for myself so that I can visually see what day it is and when I have a market coming up. That's just something that I think I need to do. I'm a very visual person, so that is one of the things that I think is probably a good little piece of advice just as you go into a more advanced market year. The same thing, I would say, if you are curious about what markets are available. For me, I was so lucky. At my very first market, one of the women came over and she talked to me and she said, oh, make sure you get on the Craft Circuit Facebook page because everyone posts in there what vendor fairs are coming up. So I would say it's definitely worth looking at your social media, using, as you know, I love the network of other vendors that are available at the events. But just when you are chatting with people there, ask like, hey, do you know of a Facebook page or anywhere where it's kind of centralized so that I can find out what markets are coming up? Because you don't always know what's available, and you might have more opportunities available to you if you're using more than just maybe your town network of options. You also probably will have more advanced notice, because I did find that a lot of things I would often not find out about them until I drove by and there was signage like upcoming craft market. And I was like, oh God, that would be a perfect market for me. But I didn't know about it because it wasn't posted anywhere until I started using that social media page. And so rather than calling and being like, hey, you have any space for crochet, which a lot of times they don't because crochet is a popular offering, they frequently wouldn't have the space, or like I wouldn't necessarily feel like I had as much time. But by using that social media, by using your vendor network at, you know, whether it be your very first market or other markets, and you kind of chat with the other people at the fairs to find out how they found out about the market, I would say using something like that is definitely helpful to you. Another thing that I've been investing in lately is storage. As everyone, if you saw any of my kind of chaos episodes, might know, it was a mess in my room of doom, and I actually started investing in plastic totes so that I had them. They're readily available, they'll fit in the car, they are safe from dust and like potential contaminants, and I can just kind of get an earmark of how much inventory I have at each of my price points, because I have a bin per price point that I sell at markets. So I would say that that's definitely something that may be helpful to you, is to invest in some reusable storage that you can kind of easily get going back and forth on your markets, because that was a little bit of a struggle in my first markets. I was using like reusable totes and a suitcase, and like it worked, but I definitely wanted a more sustainable model for storing my stuff, and then for table setup was something that I felt like I was, every time it was a bit of a, can't think of the word that I want to use, but it was a bit of a chaotic thing. It wasn't easy to just repeat the display every time and repeat my transportation. So I wanted to come up with something that was a little more sustainable, that I could do multiple markets and not have to worry about it. So investing in some sort of storage and transportation is definitely, a lot of people will use like rolling carts and stuff like that at the markets that I've seen. Things that are really helpful if you're doing multiple markets and you want to kind of reduce your lifting time and everything like that. I think those are really helpful things to start to just think about as you have more and more successful markets, right? Making your life easier as you do these markets. So that's definitely something that I would say is worth thinking about. And then finally, another thing that I'm doing, it kind of has to do a little bit more with the legitimizing of my business that I talked about in the beginning, but I do want a separate bank account for my earnings and everything like that, so I can kind of keep those separate in case I have to think about that for tax filing and income. And as I advance, if I want to just exclusively buy my yarn or my other expenses out of that account, it is something that maybe is worth thinking about. I don't know yet, because I haven't talked to the banks if there's any actual, like there might be advantages to having those as separate accounts and having a business account as opposed to, just having things go into your personal account. It's up to you how you want to model your business and how you want that to go as far as paying yourself and tracking how much money you've made. But for me, I am establishing a separate bank account for my business just so I can have that little bit more legitimacy going into my full year of markets. So that's it. And I would say no matter which fair you're on, whether it's your first or whether it's your 45th, the positive attitude. Not to be one of those in your face optimistic people, but I do feel like you need to bring that to every market that you have in order for it to be a success, because you're doing it, you're out there. So just be proud of yourself for taking these steps, for thinking about these things. You and I are on this journey together. If you're someone that's kind of starting out and making yourself known, and I would love to hear about your progress and things that you've done. If any of this advice resonated with you, or if you felt like there was something that I missed, please drop that in the comments. I would love to hear that from you guys. And as always, I forgot to mention, but my name is Ashley. I run a crochet business, AshleysAmis, and I'm so excited to be here with you all to talk about the art of crochet and the artists that make all of these things possible for us, and just to have the opportunity to talk with you all. So please feel free to like and subscribe if you were into the content today, and take a look at all my videos that I have. I kind of go all over the board as far as what we do week to week, but it's such a pleasure to be here with you guys, and I will talk to you again soon.